Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video about Rotten Tomatoes. So, if you watch movie reviews or are interested in film criticism at all, chances are that you've heard thrown around the fact that Rotten Tomato scores suck. Spoilers, they do. But, anyways, I decided to use maths to show you guys exactly how useless any given Rotten Tomato score really is. Basically, the formula for the percent score you see is percent of users that rated the movie at least 3.5 stars, which, if you didn't notice, is totally dumb. Just right off the bat, we can think that if everyone thought a movie was mediocre and rated it 3.5 out of 5, it would have a 100% Rotten Tomatoes user score. Compare this to a movie where 90% of the people thought it was a perfect 5 out of 5, and 10% thought it was still above average, gave it a 3 out of 5, this movie would score worse than the first movie. Anyways, so I've decided to translate Rotten Tomatoes score into a score that makes sense. So I made a formula that calculates the worst possible average score and the best possible average score for a given Rotten Tomatoes score. So to run the numbers, I open up MATLAB, and while we wait 10 years for that to load, I'll go over the formulas really quick. So here they are. I tried to write them pretty legibly, but I'll go over them anyways. The worst score formula assumes that all the scores above 3.5 stars are 3.5 star reviews. So the worst possible above average score according to Rotten Tomatoes, right? And all the scores below 3.5 stars, I just assume them to be 0, right? So there's no term here. The best score formula assumes that all the scores above 3.5 stars are given 5s, which is 1 out of 1, 5 out of 5, right? And all the ones below are 3, which is the highest below 3.5 star score, since Rotten Tomatoes only uses increments of half a star. And notice that both these formulas are multiplied by 100, just so that they're easier to read. Let's name our project something relevant. Anyways, I went bleep bloop, code this out in MATLAB, and basically in this vector, we're gonna have the score in the first column, the worst score in the second column, and the best score in the last column. So just going over these really quick, we can see even a 100 in Rotten Tomatoes score, it could be a perfect 100, and it could be as bad as a 70, which is a D. I don't know if a discrepancy of 30 points is what you would call accurate. I would say no, but it just gets worse from here. As you can see, a 0 score could be 0 to 60, which is a huge, enormous gap. And obviously 1% is not even that much closer. Even if we look at something like 50% halfway through, just looking at this, it could be as good as an 80, which would be a great movie above average. It could also be a 35, which I can't even imagine rating a movie that badly. And to think that the same movie could have these two scores, it's just, now you're getting to realize why this Rotten Tomatoes user score tells you almost nothing about the movie. It tells you next to nothing. Alright, so if you know about the popcorn bucket score, essentially they drew the line at 60% for some reason. So 60% gave it 3.5 or higher, then it gets this nice little red popcorn bucket, and when it's less, then it starts tipping over and it just looks worse. Anyways, let's go check that out in MATLAB. So even if you take 60%, then the discrepancy is huge. It could be as good as 84, it could be as bad as 42, which again, it's not even close. Even if you take scores closer to the middle, like, I don't know, 70 and 50, like, those two movies, are not even comparable. I think it's kind of interesting that 84 is exactly twice as much as 42. I wonder if there's a mathematical reason for that. What if Rotten Tomatoes was big brain all along.
A few moments later.
Plus 0.6, 0.4. I mean, there's no reason for it. I feel like that's not... I think they're just being silly and just thought of that off the top of their head. Anyways, moving on. I wrote a little bit of more code. Essentially, spread is the best score minus the worst score, so it's the difference between the two. Ratio is, of course, the ratio of the best score to the worst score. These are just kind of metrics we can use to judge exactly how garbage a Rotten Tomatoes score is. So we're just adding spread and ratio onto the end of the original, variable. All right, so as you can see, the spread at 0 is obviously 60, and the ratio is approaching infinity, which is hilarious that the lower score is really the best score to worst score ratio is so huge. It just keeps increasing. Even at their best, 1.5 times the best score to worst score is not really a good place to be. Spread of 30 doesn't tell you anything. Like, imagine if your teacher tells you that you either aced the test or you got a 70. That's not a good spot to be, right? Anyways, both of these just increase and get worse and worse. At 60, like we saw, you are 2 times the best score is 2 times the worst score. The spread is 42, which is just insane. Really, you're getting a feel for how useless these scores are. Wow, at 10, check it out, at 9%, your best score is literally 10 times your worst score, which is obscene. The spread is almost 60, and basically all the lower percents, which is admittedly, these are bad movies anyways, but if you check out their best score, they could be pretty good. Check it out, at a quarter, the best score is 70, which is also the worst score of 100. So think about that. A movie with 25% user score and a movie at 100% user score could theoretically be just as good average score. If you took a real score from a real algorithm where you just averaged all the user scores, it's possible that they translate to these obscenely different Rotten Tomatoes score, 25 and 100. That's just ridiculous. So really, all of these, that's three quarters of the percents possible. It's just ridiculous. Anyways, why don't we graph these out and see what they look like? All right, so I basically plot, well, let me give you guys a legend. All right, basically, here I'm plotting out these metrics. And as you can see, the ratio of best score to worst score just goes to infinity as it approaches 0. But it's not, like I said, even at 10%, it's about 10 times, the best score is about 10 times the worst score, which is obscene. As you can see, the spread from 60 to 30, this is not like a good discrepancy, even in the worst case scenario. 30 points of possible difference between the Rotten Tomatoes score and an average score. It's just ridiculous. And even if you're assuming that it's kind of towards the middle, like some sort of bell curve, which it probably is, or I don't know, maybe people don't really vote towards the middle of scores. They just give it like 0 or 5 or like 3.5. I don't know the statistics on that. But 50%, really, the spread is just obscene. A spread of 45 is half the score, essentially. You're not really getting good information out of that. Yeah, so that's it. Now you know Rotten Tomatoes score is mathematically proven. Now I've shown you guys exactly the math behind why Rotten Tomatoes score is completely garbage. It's totally useless. And now when you hear people say that, you know exactly why. All right, so when I first read this, I just assumed that when it says positively, it's talking like 3.5 or higher, since that's the number all over. Like 3.5 and 3 is the dividing line. But this could mean like the halfway point. So 2.5 and 2 would be the dividing line in MATLAB. So if we type that in, then everything becomes way worse.